Thank you so much for being here for the next panel on our Bloomberg Tech Summit. I'm Lucas Shaw, a reporter who covers future of entertainment. I also run our entertainment, media, and telecom team, and I'm here with Ann Sarnoff, who's one of the most powerful executives in the entertainment business. She oversees the film and TV studio at Warner Brothers. She oversees programming for a whole bunch of networks and HBO Max. And I wanted to start, even though so much of the focus, I think, in entertainment right now is on streaming, with movies, just a subject that a lot of people care about, and one of the businesses most affected during the pandemic. The movie business shut down for several months, or theaters are now mostly reopened. And I'm wondering, given what you've seen over the last several months, what state of the recovery you'd say the movie business is in right now?
Well, hi, Lucas. Nice to be with you. It's a work in progress. Everyone was hoping we would be on the other side of the pandemic by now, but unfortunately with Delta and then Omicron, we're kind of having to live with it for a while longer. But thankfully, people are going back to theaters. Not everybody, but certain demographics certainly are showing more of a willingness. But for us to really get back in full swing, we need the broader spectrum of ages and tastes to go back to the theater.
Who are those who are more willing, and who are those who still seem to be resistant?
Probably you would guess the answer to that, but it tends to be younger people, and I'm going to say below 35 as youngish, and the opposite, over 35, we're not seeing as much of an inclination to run back to theaters. But certain movies, we think they will come back, but I think it's going to be a gradual thing where people have gotten used to, because of the pandemic and because of trends that were happening before the pandemic, with amazing content now being delivered in the home, and high quality content and bigger screens. And then the pandemic kind of accelerated the needing to sit on your couch and not being able to go anywhere. But people are pretty used to that. And so I think that's the biggest competition of the theatrical, the exhibition business, is sitting in one's living room and having that content be good enough. So you have to compel, we all have to compel, the theaters have to compel people to come out, buy the tickets, enjoy the popcorn, head out with the family, and watch movies again on the big screen. And it is no surprise that the movies that tend to get people out of their homes are the big action adventure movies, superhero movies, certainly horror movies. People tend to like to be, scared together. Not me personally, but that is a thing. So those genres are doing well and better than others. But I really hope it goes beyond that, because we want to be telling stories on the big screen that are beyond those genres.
Is it possible, you talked about that the mix of people who will and won't go, can you release one of those big $200 million movies right now just in theaters and expect that you'll make money from it?
Yeah, that's a great question. We are about to start doing that in 2022. As you know, we stated that we would go back to an exclusive theatrical window, 45 days, with our 2022 slate, and we're certainly hoping to. Again, we're coming out of COVID, but a little bit of a hobble step. But we hope that as people get used to going to theaters, go to one movie, then that gets them to go to another movie. We hope that we can. And of course, it's not just the theatrical, it'll be kind of the whole value chain, if you will, of monetizing the movie. And overseas, we've got a bit of a patchwork of people in theaters, people not in theaters. So as a whole, we're hoping by next spring, when we have the Batman release, that we'll be in much more of a full attendance situation.
Yeah. Given Omicron and just kind of this seeming drift in the pandemic, it seems like cases are spiking again in a lot of the world. Have you guys given any thought to revisiting that plan for next year? And because this year you guys were the studio that really put your stake in the ground and say, we're going to release all of our movies at home and in theaters at the same time. It was a very controversial decision. It now looks rather prescient. Was there any thought of extending that into next year?
Well, in terms of background of how we got to the strategy for 21, we had released a big $200 million movie in the pandemic, summer of 2020, Christopher Nolan's Tenet, and we're actually quite pleased with the results. We had 363 million of box office, and the pandemic was making everybody kind of wobbly. New York City and LA were not open markets, so to actually launch a big feature movie in markets that didn't include New York and LA was quite bold, but and also to get that box office result was very successful. But then as the year went on, 2020, you remember we got kind of the cold in the in certain parts of the country, and people started spending more time indoors, and then we got the reburst of COVID. And so looking at 17 movies that we had ready for 2021, first starting with Wonder Woman 1984, we just didn't see, honestly, a way to put them in theaters only because there was just so much up in the air. So we decided to put those movies in theaters and on HBO Max day and date in the US for 31 days. The rest globally in theaters where they were open. Sometimes theaters weren't open, so we put them on premium VOD. So yes, and you're right, it was bold. We called it for a whole year. We said we have these 17 movies, we're going to release them. And you remember a year ago, the theater chains were really struggling. Like AMC, I think had, they were living month to month in terms of their cash flow. They needed movies in the theaters, but studios weren't releasing them. They kept kicking them down the road. So we actually, I think, helped the theaters stay in business in those dark days of early 2021. And we said to them, we're going to release the movies, and we're not going to change our mind. We're going to release these 17 movies on these dates, and we commit to you. So we committed to the theaters, we committed to the talent, and told the talent that they would receive full marketing spend for a global theatrical release. And honestly, that was one of the reasons we were able to come to agreement with the talent and their agents, because we put a lot of money and publicity behind the movies and in theaters. And then they were, for people who couldn't go or didn't want to go to theaters, they watched them on HBO Max. So it was a cure for a very unwieldy problem, which is a pandemic. And then coming out of the pandemic, we are going back to the theatrical window. Have we thought about going back to day and date? Sure, we've thought about it, but we have made our commitments to the market, to the theaters, to the talent, and we believe the movies that we're putting in the theaters are the ones that are really going to excite people to leave their homes and to go to theaters.
Yeah. Did any of those angry agents or filmmakers call you after the fact and apologize or say you were right in the end?
I'm not going to name names, but I did get some calls. Yes, they're not so angry. They just wanted to be paid a fair price, which is completely reasonable, and to be treated respectfully. And I believe we did that.
I spoke with an executive from another media company this week who estimated that decision, even though it obviously boosted HBO Max and it helped helped with theaters and get those movies out, as you note, that because of the lost revenue potentially from theatrical, because of everything you had to pay to talent, they guessed that probably cost your company something like $1 billion. What do you make of that number?
I have no idea how they got to that number, but there certainly has been enterprise value created for HBO Max. I mean, there's no doubt about that. We have grown 12.5 million subs year over year in a very highly competitive streaming landscape, which I know you've been writing about and want to talk about. But having those movies when everyone else had suffered that trough of shutting down production from March to about August of 2020. So there was literally a stoppage. We I don't know, something like 400 productions we stopped. So people wanted the content, and so we put it out there. And yes, we did create value for the enterprise, and also for other people's enterprises like the theater chains, and allowing to pay the talent the fees that we paid them for the window, and then for the box office receipts.
Yeah. Are you mostly back at full capacity in terms of production?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, look, there's the occasional COVID case that comes up that makes you shut down, but we have been in full production here on the lot and in Leavesden outside of London, our big studio facility there, for about a year and a half.
And are you still, I mean, I think most of the estimates over the past year or so have said that COVID adds, 15, 20%, something like that to the cost of making projects. Is that still an issue?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're still testing. We have COVID protocols that when we were in shutdown in the summer of 2020, we negotiated with all the guilds. Again, this was a first of its kind, so nobody quite knew how to do anything. And you're consulting with epidemiologists and doctors and staffing professionals, et cetera, and wondering how you can safely shoot. And so the protocols of 3 times a week testing in front of the camera, 2 times behind the camera has continued throughout since August 2020 when we went back into production. And of course that creates a lot of extra cost, but it has the good side of allowing people to come to work feeling pretty safe. And the contact tracing, most importantly, is very, very good, such that if somebody does come down with symptoms or test positive, we know who they've been in contact with, and we try to have social distancing at all times where we can so that people aren't exposed and you don't have to shut down the entire production if someone comes down to it. If your lead comes down with it, you're probably going to shut down. But everyone else, you have an opportunity to keep shooting.
As I believe happened with Batman in the UK. I'm wondering, you mentioned the 12 million additions over the last year. Now that we're a couple of years into the so-called streaming wars, all the major services are out. They've all kind of released a good amount of programming. Their strategies are at least somewhat well-defined. How do you think HBO stacks up against the competition, and what do you see as its strengths and weaknesses right now?
Yeah, I really like our position. It is, I think we have a lot of strengths vis-a-vis the competition. I think, if you look at Netflix, you see a very big 4-quadrant, obviously first mover advantage. Not as many franchises. I know they're aggressively trying to acquire franchises. You look at Disney Plus, you see a lot of amazing franchises, but they're not as 4-quadrant. They don't have as broad a range of programming outside of those franchises. And we have both. We have shows that push the boundaries of all 4 quadrants, male, female, younger, older, and amazing franchises like Game of Thrones and DC Comics and Harry Potter and, Succession and Sex and the City now with the sequel and Just Like That, which has kind of blown the roof off in terms of its debut last week. I know I saw you there. Hope you enjoyed it. And we're going to continue to build on both sides. We're going to now, go well beyond the HBO core, which obviously is in the name. So we're building on the equity and the audience of HBO, but we want to push out, I kind of call it a rubber band that you're pushing out and you want to keep it out. So younger women, HBO tended to skew a bit male. So now we've got incredible series for women and younger women like Sex Lives of College Girls from Mindy Kaling. And Just Like That, we've got Euphoria season 3 coming out, Gilded Age, Julian Fellows of Downton Abbey making a series about New York about 100 years ago. Speaking of Cynthia Nixon, she's one of the stars in that. I'm really excited about that. That'll be out in a few weeks. Flight Attendant season 2, Pretty Little Liars coming out. So you can see the amalgamation of series that are targeting certain demographics, and we're going to build audiences that way. And it's not just with franchises, it's with originals as well. We've got the Lakers Winning Time coming out about the Jerry Buss and Magic era of the Lakers. We think all audiences, but maybe male skewed, will really enjoy that, coming off Succession. And Peacemaker, spinoff of The Suicide Squad, really excited about, debuting in a few weeks also, written by James Gunn also, starring John Cena, one of the leads, and It's just so much fun. So that's one of the other strategies we've been focusing on, which is taking our core IP and making more of it. So Peacemaker comes from the Suicide Squad. We're talking about a spinoff from the Batman. So we want, fans love these series. They love the movies. We want to give them more of what they love. So we'll build out franchises, and we'll continue to come up with amazing new series like White Lotus, and kind of original things that come from nowhere other than the brilliant mind of Mike White. So we're really excited about our strengths.
I'm wondering, you mentioned Harry Potter, one of the biggest franchises in the world, really, for the last 20, 25 years. It feels, as someone who grew up on those books, like there could be more done with it. I know it's a little complicated because of the rights that are held by J.K. Rowling, the author. Is there a desire to do more? What is the plan to do more with that? And how involved does J.K. Rowling have to be in whatever you want to try to do?
Yeah, you're right. It is an amazing franchise, and one which we think a lot about and are building. I mean, we have this, I don't know if you were able to visit the new store in Manhattan. It is doing well beyond our expectations. It's actually kind of an experience. People go there and they dress up with various costumes from the cast, and because of their love of Harry Potter, they just want to be in that store and feel, buy a wand and stand next to the Hagrid standee and just really celebrate everything. So one of the reasons we have the retrospective, we have a reunion coming out on January 1 with the 3 stars. So Daniel, Emma, and Rupert, for the first time back together, celebrating the 20th anniversary of the movie. But we have done more. We have Fantastic Beasts, and the 3rd movie is coming out next spring, Secrets of Dumbledore, starring Jude Law. We have The Cursed Child on Broadway. Actually, it just re-released on Broadway. It was 2 parts. It was either a daytime and an evening, or an evening and an evening. You had to see it over 2 different time periods. Now it's a 1-parter on Broadway, which we think will make it more accessible to more people. Less expensive, obviously, because you only need to buy 1 ticket. And Cursed Child is an amazing story about Harry as an adult and as a dad. And won't give away any spoilers, but it's a very compelling story because he was an orphan. And what is Harry's life like now that he has a son? And the fans love it. I mean, I was talking to the producers. There have been fans who've gone 150 times to Cursed Child. I mean, they have to have a wee bit of money to do that, but but that's how compelling the storylines are. So, and then, yeah, sure, we would love to develop more original Harry Potter series. And we do talk to J.K. Rowling and her team. It's got to be right, though, right? Because they're so revered. The books are so revered, and the characters are so incredible. Whatever we do has to be true to the canon and true to the ethos of the Wizarding world and who Harry is. So it's exciting, and it's one of the things I'm really excited about going forward.
People think of Warner Brothers, I think, primarily as a movie studio, if they know it, but it is one of, if not the biggest TV studios in the world. And in addition to making projects for your own networks and services, you make a lot for other networks. Apple's biggest hit, Ted Lasso, is a Warner Brothers show. Manifest, which is a big hit, Warner Brothers show. You can go on down the line. We're seeing most of the companies in Hollywood stop selling to rivals, to the competition. Disney kind of famously only wants to make shows for its own services. Do you anticipate Warner Brothers curtailing the shows that it makes for other people to focus on its own platform? Do you feel pressure from people, people above you at your company to stop, selling shows that become big hits for other people?
No, is the answer. I don't see us curtailing. I see us expanding so that we can serve both our internal needs at HBO Max and continue to serve the rest of the market. We have, I think, 70 talent deals in Warner Brothers alone. And the huge strength of that ecosystem and that incredible roster of talent is that we get to, or they get to, tell stories across multiple platforms. And they come to us because they want to do that. They don't want to be vertically integrated. So, of course, we would love amazing stories from that talent group to go to HBO Max, and that's happening. I mean, look at The Flight Attendant has been a huge hit for HBO Max. That's coming from Warner Brothers Television. But you have like Ava DuVernay has Queen Sugar on OWN. She has DMZ going on HBO Max. She has Naomi going to the CW, Home Sweet Home on NBC. So Ava, her company gets to expand and tell stories across multiple platforms. And those stories have different characteristics because, as you know, broadcast television is different than streaming. So we love having this amazing group of talent with us and being able to continue to serve the market. And that's one of our core strengths as a company.
I think we have hit our limit. But Anne, thank you so much for doing this, and look forward to talking to you soon.